You ever read something and feel like there's this hidden layer, like the author's playing with words or structure, but you can't quite put your finger on what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. Like a secret code almost.
Exactly. Well, that's what we're diving into today. We've got some really interesting material here. It's kind of like a guide to these literary tricks of the trade.
Right. And the sources lay them out almost like a quiz with definitions. But our mission here is to really unpack them.
To go beyond just the definition.
Exactly. To explore, why they work, how authors use them, and how spotting them makes reading or watching a play just richer.
And it covers so much ground, doesn't it? We're talking about how words sound,
Uh-huh. The music of language.
all the way up to like plot structures and the different kinds of people in stories,
A
characters.
really broad spectrum. By the end, hopefully everyone will have a sharper eye for this stuff.
Okay, let's do it. Let's start with the sounds. We've got this term, consonants. What's the deal with that one?
Okay, so consonants, it's basically about repeating consonant sounds, but the key is it's usually within the words or at the end. Not necessarily the beginning sound, because that's alliteration.
Ah, right. Different from alliteration.
Yeah. The example is given where flip-flop and pitter-patter, hear those P and T sounds.
Yeah, you definitely hear them repeating. It's got a rhythm.
Exactly. It creates this percussive feel, and authors use that. Think about maybe lots of he sounds when describing something sneaky or slithering.
Ooh, yeah, like a snake. Creates a mood.
Precisely. It adds this texture, this subtle layer you might not consciously notice, but you kind of feel it.
Okay, that makes sense. It's the consonants doing the work, not the vowels. It'd be assonants, right?
Correct. Assonance is the vowel sound equivalent.
Got it. Now, what about when things get mixed up? Senses, I mean. Synesthesia. Sounds fancy.
It does sound a bit complex, but the idea is pretty cool. Synesthesia is when you describe one sense using terms from another sense, like the source said, hearing a color or seeing a sound.
So like loud yellow or smooth jazz.
Exactly like that. Yellow isn't actually loud, and jazz isn't something you physically touch and call smooth.
Right.
But combining those senses creates this really vivid, unexpected image. It makes you think differently. It taps into these connections in our brain we don't usually make.
So it makes the description richer, more imaginative.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's shift a bit to figures of speech that are about emphasis or contrast. Hyperbole first. We all use this one, right? So hungry I could eat a horse.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Hyperbole is all about deliberate exaggeration, massive overstatement for effect.
But why? What's the point of exaggerating so much?
Well, it creates a really strong emotional impact. Nobody thinks you're literally going to eat a horse, but they immediately get just how hungry you are.
Okay, so it grabs attention.
It does. It emphasizes a feeling or maybe a quality in a way that's super memorable. Sometimes funny, too. It's not about being literal. It's about making a point loudly,
Making it impossible to ignore.
Right. Okay, now what about putting opposites side by side? Antithesis. The example was, to err is human, to forgive divine. That sounds quite profound.
It is profound, and the structure really helps make it land. Antithesis works by placing contrasting ideas right next to each other, usually in a similar grammatical structure.
Like, to err is human and to forgive divine. They sound balanced.
Exactly. That parallel structure highlights the contrast. Err versus forgive, human versus divine. They're direct opposites.
Ah, I see.
And that balance, that direct opposition, it creates this really striking, memorable statement, packs a punch.
The symmetry really makes the difference stand out. Okay, let's look at contradictions now, or maybe saying things indirectly. Oxymoron, jumbo shrimp, deafening silence, love those.
They're great examples, aren't they? An oxymoron jams together two words that seem to totally contradict each other.
Like jumbo and shrimp, big and small.
Right. Or deafening and silence, loud and quiet. But putting them together creates a new meaning, often a surprising one. It forces you to think. Yeah, it does. Makes you pause. What about transferred epithet? The example was a sleepless night. Why is sleepless transferred?
Good question. It's transferred because logically the night itself can't be sleepless, right?
No. A night is just night.
Exactly. It's the person experiencing the night who is sleepless, but by attaching sleepless to night, the writer kind of transfers the person's feeling onto the night itself.
So it connects the person's inner state to their surroundings?
Yeah, it adds this layer of feeling, of subjectivity. It shows how the person's mood is coloring their perception of the night.
Interesting. Okay, and then euphemism.
Yeah.
Like saying passed away instead of died. We do this constantly. Why?
Well, the main reason is usually to soften things, to make harsh or sensitive topics seem less Blunt.
Less direct.
Yeah. Died can feel stark, maybe upsetting. Passed away is gentler, more indirect. It's often about social tact or trying not to cause offense or distress, especially with subjects like death or bodily functions.
Right. Navigating tricky subjects politely.
Yep.
Okay, let's change tack again. Thinking of shifts in tone. We have bathos. Sounds like pathos, but different.
Very different outcome, yeah. Pathos aims for pity or sadness.
Hmm.
Bathos is when you have this sudden drop, like you're aiming for something serious, maybe grand, and it just collapses into something silly or trivial.
And it's usually accidental.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
It's that unintentional humor that happens when someone tries too hard to be lofty and fails. The mood just pops like a balloon.
A failed attempt at seriousness becomes funny.
Yeah.
Got it. What about anticlimax? The source says it's similar, but can be deliberate. How does that work?
Okay, so anticlimax also involves a letdown after building things up. You expect something big, some grand resolution, and instead you get something totally ordinary, or maybe even ridiculous. But the key difference from bathos is that the writer intends this effect.
Why would they do that?
Could be for comedy building suspense, then pulling the rug out. Or maybe to make a satirical point, like showing how mundane reality is after all the drama. Or just to subvert expectations. The intention matters.
Okay. So anticlimax can be a clever tool. And then, cliché, busy as a bee.
Yeah.
We know these.
Yeah.
Why are they considered bad writing, usually?
Well, cliches are victims of their own success, really. They were probably fresh and clever once.
Right.
But they've been used so many times that they've lost all their original punch. They're predictable. Your brain just kind of skips over them.
Like verbal wallpaper?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't create vivid images anymore. Good writers try to find fresh ways to say things, avoid those tired old phrases.
Makes sense. Avoid linguistic autopilot. Okay, let's get into the bones of stories, plot, and drama elements. Conflict. Seems basic, but why is it so crucial?
Conflict is the engine, really. Without some kind of struggle, some opposition between characters or inside a character or against nature, whatever, there's just nothing happening.
No story.
Right. Conflict creates the problems, the tension, the stakes. It's what makes us care what happens next, what needs to be overcome.
It keeps you hooked.
Mm.
And all that tension builds towards the climax, the peak moment.
Yeah, the climax is the highest point of tension. It's where the main conflict comes to a head. Often it's the turning point, where things shift decisively.
The point of maximum intensity.
Usually, yeah. Big emotional stakes, often significant action. It's the moment where the outcome starts to become clear and things can't really go back to how they were.
Okay. But before we get there, we need the setup, exposition. What does that usually cover?
Exposition is all about laying the groundwork, usually right at the beginning. It gives the audience the essential background info.
Like who's who and where are we?
Exactly. Characters, relationships, the setting, time, and place, and maybe the initial situation or the hint of the conflict that's about to unfold. It sets the stage.
Got it. Setting the scene, introducing the players, and then after the climax, things wind down. Denouement. What's happening there?
Denouement literally means untying or unraveling. It's the part after the climax.
Okay.
The conflicts get resolved, questions are answered, loose ends are tied up. It's the falling action leading towards the final conclusion.
Wrapping everything up. Now, the notes mention some interesting mixed genres. Tragicomedy first. Sounds like a blend.
It is. It mixes tragic and comic elements. Often you have a story that seems like it's heading for disaster, real tragedy, but then it takes a turn and ends happily. Or maybe it just blends serious themes with humorous moments throughout. It reflects how life isn't always purely tragic or purely comic, right?
Yeah, life's messy. Keeps you on your toes, emotionally. Then there's closet drama, a play meant to be read. Why write that?
Sometimes a playwright is more focused on, say, complex ideas or intricate language, or maybe deep psychological states that are hard to actually stage.
Things that work better on the page than on stage.
Exactly. Maybe there are long philosophical arguments or scenes that are technically just too difficult, or maybe wouldn't even be visually interesting. The focus shifts to the reader's imagination.
A more intellectual experience.
Yeah.
Got it. And briefly, a curtain raiser.
Yeah.
A short thing at the start.
Yeah, just a little short play, maybe some music performed before the main show starts.
Like an opening act.
Sort of. Its job is just to warm up the audience, get them settled, maybe set a mood before the main event kicks off. An appetizer, basically.
Okay, nice little warm-up. Let's quickly touch on poetry structure. Meter,
Yeah.
manometer, demeter. All the way to octometer. Why pay attention to the number of feet in a line?
Well, the meter, that pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables, is what gives a poem its rhythm, its music.
Right.
And the number of feet, these metrical units, in each line determines the pace and feel. A short line, like dimeter, 2 feet, feels very different from a longer one like pentameter, 5 feet.
And pentameter is the famous one, right?
Hmm.
Shakespeare.
That's the one. Iambic pentameter. 5 pairs of unstressed, then stressed syllables. It often sounds quite natural, almost conversational, which is probably why it's so common in English. Recognizing the meter helps you feel that underlying pulse.
It's the heartbeat of the poem.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Moving to things that repeat or frame the work. Motif. How is that different from, say, a theme?
That's a good distinction. A theme is the main idea or message. A motif is a smaller, recurring element. Could be an image, a sound, an object, a word, even a character type that pops up again and again.
And it relates to the theme.
Yes, exactly. It helps to reinforce or develop the theme. If the theme is, say, decay, you might have recurring motifs of rotting things, crumbling buildings, darkness.
Like little signposts pointing back to the main idea?
Precisely. They weave through the text, adding layers of meaning.
Okay. Next, epigraph. That little quote at the very beginning of a book.
That's the one. An epigraph is a short quotation, usually from some other source, that the author puts right at the start.
That's its job.
It often acts as a hint or a key. It might suggest the main themes, set the tone, provide some context, or offer a lens through which to view the work that follows. It's like the author saying, think about this as you read.
A little clue up front. And then prolepsis. This sounds tricky. Referring to the future as if it's already happened.
Yeah, it can be a bit mind-bending. The example given was great. The dead man walked into the room.
Whoa. Okay, that gets your attention.
Right. You immediately know something the characters likely don't. It creates instant suspense or dramatic irony. By mentioning a future event as if it's already fact, the author plays with time and creates anticipation or dread.
Gives the audience a sense of foreboding. Cool technique. All right, let's talk characters. Dramatis personae. Sounds very formal.
It is formal, Latin for persons of the drama. It's simply the cast list you find at the start of a play script.
Just who's in the play. Simple. Okay,
Cool.
diction, word choice. How big a deal is this?
Oh, huge. Diction is fundamental. It's not just which words the author chooses, but also how they arrange them, the sentence structure, the syntax,
So it affects everything.
pretty much. Diction reveals character. Are they educated, formal, slang ease? Sets the tone. Serious, comic, sarcastic. Establishes the style. It's the author's voice on the page. Even one word choice can change the whole feel.
The author's fingerprint.
Yeah.
Okay, then we have stock characters. The familiar types.
Yeah, those ones we recognize instantly. The grumpy old man, the damsel in distress, the mad scientist.
What's the point of using them if they're so familiar?
Well, they're kind of shortcut. Because we already know the type, the writer doesn't need to spend ages explaining them. They can establish a character quickly and maybe focus elsewhere, or even play against the stereotype later.
But they can be a bit cardboard, right?
They can be if the writer doesn't add any depth. They're archetypes, starting points.
Makes sense. How does a type or typical character differ from a stock character?
It's a bit subtler, usually. A type character isn't necessarily a broad stereotype like a stock character. They represent a specific class or group, like a typical worried mother or a typical ambitious executive. It's more about representing common traits of a segment of society, maybe more realistically than a stock character.
More representative, less exaggerated.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, E.M. Forster's terms. Flat and round characters.
Yeah.
Flat first. What defines them?
Forster said flat characters are built around a single idea or quality. They're simple, predictable, and they don't really change or develop through the story.
They serve a purpose.
Often, yeah. They might move the plot along or highlight something about the main character, but they don't have much inner complexity themselves.
Okay, so the opposite, round characters, must be.
Complex, multifaceted. Like real people, they have contradictions, mixed motives, depth. They can surprise us, they grow, they change, they feel much more
The
three-dimensional.
ones that feel alive. Okay,
Yeah.
home stretch. Some specific literary forms. Domestic tragedy. Sounds intense.
It is, but the focus is different from, say, Shakespearean tragedy with kings and queens. Domestic tragedy deals with the serious problems and suffering of ordinary people, often middle or lower middle class.
So tragedy in everyday life.
Exactly. Their problems may be financial ruin, marital breakdown, family conflicts lead to disastrous outcomes. It often feels very relatable, very close to home.
Brings tragedy down to earth.
Hmm.
Then proverb. Like a penny saved is a penny earned. Why do these stick around?
Because they pack a lot of perceived wisdom or common sense into a short, catchy phrase. They offer advice or observations about life that resonate with people across time. They become part of the cultural fabric.
Little nuggets of shared understanding. Okay, a few related to songs or poems. Prothlamion, a marriage song.
Yeah, specifically a song or poem written to celebrate an upcoming marriage. The key is it's before the wedding, like an anticipatory celebration in verse.
A pre-wedding poem.
Got it.
And psalm.
Think biblical book of Psalms, sacred songs or poems, primarily expressing praise, worship, sometimes lament or thanks, usually directed towards God.
Okay, religious praise songs. Then, threnody. Sounds sad.
It is. It's a song or poem specifically lamenting someone's death. Like an elegy or a dirge, it's a formal expression of grief, sometimes implies a more musical quality.
A formal lament. And lastly, tirade.
A long speech.
A long, forceful, often angry speech delivered by one character to other characters on stage. It's not like a soliloquy where they're alone thinking aloud. A tirade is a direct, passionate outburst aimed at others present.
A verbal attack within the scene. Wow. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground there. That's quite the toolkit of literary terms.
It really is. From tiny sound effects to big plot structures and character types, understanding these really does change how you read, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It gives you the language to talk about how a story works, not just what happens. You see the craft involved.
Exactly. You appreciate the choices the author made.
So maybe the challenge for everyone listening is, next time you read a book or watch something, try to spot some of these. See if you can name that technique. Yeah, actively look for them. Hyperbole, motif, climax, maybe even a sneaky bit of prolepsis.
Recognizing them definitely deepens the whole experience. It makes you wonder, how many of these techniques do we actually use ourselves, just in everyday conversation, without even thinking about it? Probably all throw in a bit of hyperbole now and then.
Huh. Probably true. Food for thought.
Definitely something to think about.
Mm.
Well, thanks for unpacking all that with us today.